get you through the process. One of the things that's involved, though, that helps you in terms of establishing that you have a farm is just having records. And I've handed these out at, I think, the first workshop we did. I'll tell you, everyone, just there's a crop record and a livestock record, but I've got some of those here. I don't think everybody was here to get one of those the first time, but the idea is you just have something to get started with for keeping your records, so you can at least establish that you have 3 years of records, which is typically what they're looking for in some cases. But I guess just to kind of get that off of that note on the farm records, note that Farm Service Agency is what they would call a land-based agency. So the idea is that the Farm Service Agency numbers, the number that you'd be assigned, stays with that farm. So like if I were to go out and buy a farm, I would have that same number that would be associated with that farm before, but I would have to go and change the ownership so that they know that I'm farming now that farm and not who was there before. Okay. And so the idea is also it's tied to the land and having a geographic location, an address, and everything to there. And I'll just go a little bit through this three-ring binder here, since we've got quite a bit of time here. The first thing is there's this little pocket book here. I don't know if you see this or not, but the idea here is that this is something that you could take with you out to the field. It has like this water-resistant paper on it, and so like there's several different sections here, but there's like a crop planting section first start off. So there's also a crop planting section in here, the idea so that you could put some things related to your plantings, put it in kind of a short format form here, and then expand upon it out in the three-ring binder. Just also to put it in reference, this little notebook here that you put in your pocket actually costs more to print than these here, because they're printed on this water-resistant paper. So the idea is, if it's in the field, it could get wet or whatnot or dirty. So the idea is this paper will hold up and the ink will stay on it there. But it's meant for, you can put your plot ID down, how many weeks to harvest, whether it's seed or transplant location. So there's a couple pages here on the crop planting. Then there's, if you have field activities, there's plot field activities. So that could be there where you might be using a piece of equipment there, or also just think about it in terms of keeping track of your time, because labor's by far the most costly element in vegetable production, even on the commercial side typically. That's changing somewhat with the robotics, with mechanical weeding and whatnot, and artificial AI as well, that's being used on there to identify the weeds versus the plants and whatnot. It's pretty amazing, but still labor is like, there's just no substitute for getting around labor in a lot of things. But on the weeding side, a lot of that used to be hand weeded, and everybody here is doing hand weeding, right? But there's machines now that go down through the field and just cut out the weeds and weed the plants, which is really amazing. So all the activities are there, the equipment that's there. I mean, the problem with that equipment though is what, it's like so expensive that it's going to take a lot of acres for them to pay it. So it kind of goes against the smaller farmer, I guess, in terms of it just goes towards more consolidation. But we definitely have, if you look in agriculture in Arizona, they always say, what are the two biggest issues? The one is labor, they say, and what's the other one? Water. Yeah, so Definitely pretty important. So keeping track of your labor is pretty important. And then we also have a column there for water use, if you're able to track that, since that is one of our most precious resources, especially in this hot weather here. And then there's also, you scroll through, there's some pages here, what we call the harvest log. So there's, in terms of what plots you've planted, your species, you can put in, you know, how much you have there for sale, the percent that's marketable, why it wouldn't be marketable. If there's any for home use there, there's even a column for that, because there's value in terms of what you use for your home, even though you don't sell it. So, you know, but admittedly, these columns are pretty tight here, so it's pretty hard to get very much information in there. But that's why there's more room here in the 3-ring binder to move along there. But then there's also a section here on crop expenses and income. So if you've got like expenses for seeds and whatnot, or expenses for fertilizers, compost, whatnot, you could put that in this section here. And then there's also a column here for income. So if it's something that's being sold, you know, if you're selling kale, you could also put that in there in terms of how many pounds you have and what you sell it for. And then translate it over to there's a harvest record section here in the 3-ring binder that kind of fits along with the harvest record over here. And then there's the financial records that fits here with the expenses and revenues that are there.
Real quick, Russ, do you have digital versions of these that of these documents? Because right now the people online in the video can't really see what's going on.
Yeah, you know, I yes and no. I'm supposed to be sending him a new digital version, and I haven't updated everything on there yet, so I didn't. But there is kind of a digital version out there. I guess I just didn't bring it with me to go through here.
Sure. And some of these things like the harvest record and stuff, we kind of been over.
Yeah, we've been over before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I could have put some slides in and everything, but I was just thinking, I wasn't sure how many people would be here and what all their questions would be, but we also have to give an incentive for people to come here, right? You know, so we can see their face. You know, I can't see anybody online. I don't know if they're listening or not, but that's good. But there are these envelopes here and stuff. So the idea you can keep track of your expenses, put them in there. And one of the things we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, as to whether your operation is a hobby or a business. And why is that important? Because if it's like a business, then keeping track of your expenses, you can be deducted, right? So if you have expenses for your fertilizer, seeds, those can be deducted from your revenues that you're getting in terms of on the business side. If you know, a good example would be, nobody has horses here, but like say if you're in the racehorse business and you have horses, then you can deduct that feed going to the horses, because you obviously should have some winnings associated with the horses eventually, or they give you a long time for that. But if you just have a pleasure horse and you have feed expenses, you're not allowed to deduct it, because that's like a hobby. It's not a business. So, you know, and I think gardeners, small producers, can almost get in that same trap, because if they're using everything for their own consumption, then they don't have the revenue to show, because technically to be a business for the IRS, they're looking for what? Profitability in 2 out of the last 5 years. So you could have losses for 3 years, but then you would need to have your revenues exceed your expenses on a cash basis, at least in the 4th and 5th year. Okay, so that's just kind of a quick, the other thing that I would note is that there is a section here for precipitation. so if you want to, I know we haven't had a whole lot of rain or anything, so precipitation is one thing you can keep track of. There's a log in here. And then there's also a vehicle log too, because I know most people have to get around by vehicle in Arizona. You know, it's not like where you can take a train or bus in those places, you know, so the vehicle log, oftentimes people are using vehicle to get their product to market as well. So just keeping track of how many miles you're accumulating there on your vehicle is also an important part of your operation. So this is not meant to be something that's exhaustive or anything, but you know, it's meant to just get you started in terms of describing your operation, and just have a template here for keeping track of your activities that you do, as well as your expenses and revenues. It's nothing fancy, but a good starting point if you don't have anything else. Hopefully it can help you organize a little bit better in terms of what you might need or whatnot. And I think this is important too, just for the Farm Service Agency to kind of establish that you are a farm. I'm just going to give a couple examples of urban farms here. This is, well, actually both of them are out in the Mesa area, but this is Tyler Heyer. He has operation out in Mesa, but what's kind of interesting about his operation is that he has all these different land pieces, like in the yellow there, that he's operating. And the biggest thing that he's done there is try to consolidate these so he can get ag land status. And also, because he had Farm Service Agency number, so he was able to get like funding here for high tunnels. High tunnels are one of the more common things that are being used in terms of what's called the EQIP program, or the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. There's like almost like a fast track for getting approved on those right now. And these are a couple of kind of caterpillar tunnels where they are starting putting them up. They're not done yet with it, but they put plastic over this, 6 mil plastic and everything. And this is on a cost share basis. And if you're a beginning farmer, you can get up to like, 90% of the cost covered. So it's pretty significant, to where you have Farm Service Agency number. These tunnels that are coming out of kits that are approved by USDA as well. These will often run like about $6,000 or $7,000 for one, and kind of a basic form, different form. So they have a set amount that they approve of, and some producers get kind of add-ons to make them easier to manage and whatnot. And this also just shows one of the, what he's called the tractors for the chicken coops. They move around. He's really sold on this version here because he bought this one. I think it's a company out of Colorado, but you can see anyway, it's got enough structural integrity and tightness to all the wire that he hasn't had any issues with coyotes or the raccoons or anything getting into the chickens there. And it's quite durable for holding up as they push it around and whatnot. So he's got cattle and different things, but he also does, I think, honey, and a lot of his stuff he takes to Steadfast Farms, and I'll show a picture of that after a while as well. I throw this in here because anybody know Phil Jackson? He works for NRCS, but he only has like 208 square feet of growing beds, and that's is for a farm as well. So you don't need a lot of acreage to be considered a farm for FSA. There's no real minimum acreage requirement. The kind of definition from USDA is that you have $1,000 in ag sales or the ability to do $1,000 in ag sales. So it's not a lot to cross that bar, but there's no like defined rule that, well, you got to have 2 acres or whatever to be considered a farm by FSA on geographic area. You can have a very small area and still have a Farm Service Agency number. So that's one good thing to keep in mind. So you want to have farm records established here, and these are the range of different commodities and products that you could have that kind of fit in with Farm Service Agency. Everything from aquaculture to the urban ag, even just rangelands for livestock. Obviously, traditional commodity farms as well, like they grow cotton, wheat, alfalfa, and you can any mix of these will work just fine for getting you a Farm Service Agency number. So there's basically like 3 ways you could establish yourself as a farmer. One being, come on in here. One being, you can obtain the Farm Service Agency number. And we'll go through the whole process of how you do that. There's not a whole lot to be done. There's a form that's used, and somebody from Farm Service Agency could walk you through that. Here, I'll give you, we kind of went through these later. The other way is the filing of your Schedule F with the IRS, because that establishes a record as well that you're a farmer, especially if you have, this is where you have to meet the criteria though of having 2 years of profitability out of the last 5 years, kind of be considered. If you go, beyond that 4th year without having any profit, or where your expenses always exceed your revenues, the IRS is going to come and say, well, this should be treated as a hobby and not as a business, because you're essentially using those losses to write down your income from other sources, So that's a key thing. And the other thing that's probably the most difficult to do, especially in urban areas, is get your land classed as ag land. And this is what Tyler was doing here when he was consolidating all of these here. He was trying to get the property tax base changed from urban zoning to ag zoning. And why is that? Because ag zoning is a lot cheaper. And this just shows how the tax bill here, he showed, went from like being around $2,800 for a piece of land down to like $500. So you can see that's just like 1/5 of the taxes. So if you have very much acreage involved, this adds up to a lot really fast. That's why in some cases, even like on the ranching side, like down in southeastern Arizona, on these smaller parcels, they'll just let the neighboring rancher that has a farm number and ag land status to graze their land for nothing, just so that they can get the ag land status, because you have to consolidate them together to consider it part of that operation. If they just had 20 acres there by themselves, they wouldn't really be considered large enough to have ag status. So I've gotten calls from people that work for the county and say, what can I do to show that you need more than this or whatever to make an actual living on agriculture? Because in many cases they may just have one cow out there, but they're like, or in this case this guy had a couple roping steers, and the argument was, well, how can he make a living off of that? Well, I mean, he probably isn't able to, but if he can say he's combined with the neighboring ranch that might be there that's larger, then it becomes one ag unit together would make it considered ag land status. So this gets kind of tricky in terms of doing this, but becomes pretty important, especially if you have more acreage. Because Tyler, in addition to these activities here, he was doing a lot of alfalfa hay as well. So that's what the larger acreage was tied up with. Was he was, you know, mowing and baling hay and selling hay bales as well. So that's where he got into more of the acreage. But it's a pretty important thing to be able to do in order to reduce your taxes down like this. I mean, you can just see, you know, in the last 10 years here, he's, you know, saved what, you know, about roughly $2,000 a year. So, you know, that's $20,000 over the last 10 years. So that adds up to a lot. Okay, so what is needed from Farm Service Agency to get your farm number? There's, you know, basically, I guess you might say 4 kind of things here, and we'll go through some of these forms. But first, you have to think of, you need your Social Security number or your EIN. Like say if you're an LLC or something for the entity, what that tax ID is associated with your operation. I know some people have an LLC just for kind of like protection, liability wise. If you're just an individual, then you can still file your taxes as an individual. But if there's more than one individual involved, then you have to file with the LLC. So when are returns due for the LLC? If you don't file as an individual? Huh? So tax day is April 15th, right? Mm-hmm. For an individual. But if you have an LLC, you have to file that by March 15th, the month before, so that everybody gets their percentage of the share of the loss that is associated with the LLC, and then feeds that into their own individual income taxes. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're thinking of forming an LLC with a couple individuals. You'll have to be thinking about March 15th as getting everything done first before you go to April 15th. The other thing you need is either a property deed or a lease agreement associated with the land. And they're going to be looking at they want to know the address, and they'll pull it up on the GIS maps as well to try to outline that area now. That's the thing, I guess, about anymore today. Nothing's really completely private, right? I mean, you can be viewing down from way up in the sky and pretty much, you know, identify any of the sections there. It was kind of like my son was telling me he's just went to work for Applied Materials, and they were describing the detail on the chip. He said basically it's like you're on the space shuttle and you look down in the city in New York and you can tell what kind of an ant it is that you're looking at. You know, I mean, so there's that kind of detail, not with what Farm Service Agency uses, but it's available in terms of, you know, seeing where your production is at and everything. And the last thing, of course, you're going to need signatory authority that are on the forms here. So this is the form here that they will have you fill out. And you can download this form online as well and go through the eDocs. You just have to have set up the established account. So I think you may have to do this actually in person first to get started here. But you can see you would be checking you're the new customer here, your information here with regards to address, phone numbers, tax identification number, social security number, EIN, etc. They want to know if you're a U.S. resident or not, or a resident alien. They want to know the race here as well, and your interest in one of these agencies here. So they divide it up into Ag Marketing Service. What does Ag Marketing Service do? They provide a lot in terms of market information and stuff. They have a few grant areas, but probably not as much of interest as the others for you right now. A Farm Service Agency, would want to be interested in them because they do like loans, low interest loans, micro loans. The idea of the micro loan is to be more streamlined, and I think Rachel's going to talk about that some probably next. But the idea is make it more streamlined and easier for you to apply. Not as much paperwork, although there's still always paperwork. So FSA has a lot of programs that are available, but the high tunnels that I was showing you, those are available through NRCS and the EQIP program. NRCS does a lot with conservation as well, so if there was anything with regards to drip irrigation installation or irrigation system, they can provide assistance in helping that and getting set up. RMA, does anybody know what RMA is? Okay, so that's the Risk Management Agency. And why you may want to be interested in that is they have discounts for beginning farmers. So policies are subsidized, and they have what's called micro farm policy right now. That, I think I covered this last time a little bit, but on the micro farm, the idea is they put all of the commodities you produce together and insure against the revenue on that. So like if you're selling your product, say you have edible flowers that you're selling dried for a very high price, then the price that you sell by gets worked into that because it's built off of the Schedule F. So you need 3 years of your Schedule F. And if you were to have like a natural disaster or something, it just could even be just the drought, too hot to where you don't have the production, and your production falls below, you can insure up to 85% of your proven revenue or expected revenue. So if you were to fall below that, then payments would start to come in based off of what you have. But they basically cover. The subsidy rate is the highest for like micro farm and whole farm revenue insurance of all the insurance products out there, whether related to like revenue cotton or revenue yield. And you can put in a mix of herbs, vegetables, whatever you would be selling into that micro farm kind of portfolio, and that gives you a base and that you could work from, because if they're insuring, in this case, the subsidies typically go up to almost like 80% of their premium. So with like a beginning farmer. So if the odds, if the actuarials are even close to being right, over time, you should definitely get more money back than you put in. But we still haven't had a lot of sign-ups for like the micro farm, and I think part of it is because you have to have records in place, and you have to share your Schedule F with the insurance agent as well. It's like a reinsurance product. So I don't know, a lot of people are probably not comfortable doing that, but I think in the future we might see more and more of that. Regarding this Form 2 for your customer data, there's actually, I think, 3 pages of instructions, so just to show it's not real easy, but It just goes through all the details in terms of each box there, and different scenarios in terms of who you might be filling in for as well. I put this sheet up here. This is right off of USDA's website, but this is kind of the three common forms here that they often use. So the customer data worksheet, that 82047, that's what I was just showing you in terms of getting started. But there's also the farm operating plan here and members information form. These are identified as being kind of like the most common forms that they use in terms of the USDA. And probably something to think about, but you know, just to get a farm number, this is all you need. But in order to start going and becoming eligible for more programs, you know, your farm operating plan as well as membership information is something that would need to be carried out. So your farm operating plan here, this is where what this form looks like. It just has your basic information, where you're at, individual. If there's any additional information here provided in terms of what you might have for another person to be added on there. It could be a guardian. Then you also have, of course, the tax ID, the state where you're located, and where you're farming at, the name of the farming of interest. All those go, as well as over here in terms of the land. You want to know about the land, the location, owned or leased, if it's renting, what the rental rate per acre or share crop, and the capital. You want to know the sources of capital there. And down to the equipment here, to know the percent that might be owned by you, or if the equipment's leased, and that. So that's the kind of information that they're looking for in the farm operating plan. There's also, it continues on here, if you have any custom services, and then that labor, that important part there, if you have hired labor, you would add that in there, or if you're just 100% on your own, you would note that. And then who is doing the management here? Are you the one that's doing all the, 100% of the management, or is there someone else that's being hired to do some of the management? And then at the end, of course, you sign it here, and if you are approved in their system, Farm Service Agency in particular, you can do this electronically, you know. So, but typically, I think most people have to go down to the office or meet with Farm Service Agency and get connected on that. I know we tried to get Farm Service Agency here, a couple individuals, because there is the Urban Farm Center now that's right here in Phoenix, just kind of moved in here. And Talisa, would be here, but they have issues in terms of working outside of, 9 to 4:30 or something like that. I guess it causes USDA problems in terms of overtime or whatever. They're not approved for or whatever, so they're not technically allowed to come in at the evening training like this. So, but if we did something during the day, we could have them be here and just sign you up right on the spot if you want it.
So where is the office?
Okay, so they're eventually supposed to be located in the Maricopa County Extension Office, but they're still kind of not totally moved in there, as I understand. But the Maricopa County Extension Office on Broadway, that's the plan, is for the urban ag FSA and personnel to be in that office there, that facility. And I'm not sure why they're still not moved in there already, but that's my understanding. But for now, as I understand, most of them are still kind of working a little bit out of the Avondale office and mainly out of their house, or home, I guess, going around. So that oh, and then there's also definitions here that available for the farm operating plan, just to further define what all the different terms mean in terms of actively engaged in farming, interest in farming, and on down to capital, all the contributions. So again, it may only be a 2-page form, but there's 5 pages to describe how to fill out the form typically, and that's I mean there's obviously a lot of legal jargon here because it is like a contract per se in terms of what you're signing up for, especially like when you get out and if you apply for like a EQIP program for like a high tunnel, you're essentially taking out a contract with USDA that you'll complete that under a certain timeline. So you have to keep that in mind. And there's actually a form on USDA that if you're unable to make contract for certain rains, that you fill that out. I know with when COVID was going on, they had kind of their set rates for everything, like from high tunnels to irrigation systems, and costs just exploded. So some of the things that they put out for contract, they actually pulled back because it wasn't coming close to the cost that it was actually going to cost them to install. So they only update their rate that they pay basically once a year. So that was something that came out. The member information, that's the third area there that was real common with USDA. And the idea here is to get all the legal information that might be associated with it, whether you're husband, wife, joint, or if you were with 2 individuals, partners, however, that information would need to go on this form here so that the benefits and whatnot would be tracked appropriately, because you have to think about this as well too, the tax consequences. So you may get a cost share on a high tunnel, say that works out to be $5,000 or something. What is that going to do? You're going to get a 1099 from the federal government on that $5,000 because you benefited that much. So just keep that in mind as well too. I mean, that doesn't mean that you're going to have to pay tax on that necessarily, depending on what tax bracket you're in, but that is something that will get added to your income. So just keep that in mind.
Real quick, Russ, we're still having a lot of issue with audio, so I'm going to try to switch devices.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to mute this. Let's see. I'm just going to set my phone right here.
Okay, you want me to talk to the phone?
Yeah, I mean, you can try.
Yeah, I can try. Okay, sure. I can actually even see myself a little bit now, I guess. Okay, so the member information here is another thing to keep track of. Part D here goes down if there's any minors or shareholders or things you might have, any foreign interests as well. That's all kept track of. As I noted, there's basically like 461 forms that are online here in terms of USDA's service agency forms. I've browsed through them all. You can browse through them all as well to see all the different forms. Some of them are in Spanish, and there's some that are even in more languages than just Spanish, but there are quite a few in Spanish here. I'm just going to highlight a little bit here on the Organic Certification Cost Share Program, because that's a program that will pay you up to, I believe it's like $750 for getting certified organically. And it's probably up to, I think, as a beginning farmer, maybe it's 85%, I can't remember. But the idea is you can get a cost share on that, and you would have to fill out this form here in terms of the year, being the applicant, what year you are, and you have to keep track of your expenses as well. So that's why you want to definitely, any expenses you have associated with bringing in an organic certifier would be there. But most of the farms in Arizona that market directly are not certified organic. And the reason most people tell me why they're not is when they say, well, I can easily sell all of my product without being certified organic. And the consumers know how, my consumers know how I produce. So the cost share is an important program, I think, especially if you're going to sell to like a third party that doesn't recognize your name. But I mean, we only have, I think, like 40, or is it maybe 60 certified organic farms in Arizona that go through with it. So most of the ones that are certified organic work with together so that they bring in a certifier from California. We don't have one here in Arizona. And they have to pay for the cost, their travel costs to come in and to certify and whatnot. So they usually try to get together and split that cost out. And there's also certification on the processing side as well too. I know the University of Arizona, the meats lab they had there was certified organic. Right now they're remodeling it. I presume they'll try to get back, but they were the only ones that I'm aware of that was certified organic on the processing side. So that's the other side too. If you have processing or handling, typically when you think of produce, we're selling directly, so there's no processing involved there, and you can get the certification there. This is the other part, just that you certify that your information is true, correct, whatnot, and that you have all the documents available to support. So, the paperwork involved and the record keeping is another reason why some people don't do organic certification, but a lot of people feel that it's important that they have the third-party verification that their product is certified organic. And there's farms that do it, yeah. And there's the regenerative certification now as well too. So there's a lot of different possibilities there. So benefits of having the farm number, like I said, you're eligible for the different farm programs, crop insurance, through Risk Management Agency, the disaster assistance, mainly through FSA, and these conservation programs, like with the high tones. You can also, if you have a Farm Service Agency number, you're going to get information back in terms of what FSA sends out. They have an email list, and they send you out updates to the program, latest or whatever, so you'd be the first to know about that. And also it definitely helps you get the ag land status with your county tax assessor. It's not a guarantee by any means, but you're not going to have a chance if you don't have that FSA farm number. I know it's a process, even not just in urban areas, but even like up in Chino Valley, the farmer up there, he had like 20 acres, and he had to really work a long time with the county to show that he was making a living there off of his farming, because he was doing high value agriculture, taking it to the farmer's market. And he kept all his records and whatnot, and was eventually able to get that ag land status there. And then once he had the ag status, then the neighbors, of course, were like, hey, will you farm ours? And then, because you're right there, and you can kind of expand out and make their taxes go down as well there. You want to be counted in the ag census, because a lot of the programs are related to the number of producers in an area. So it's important that you get counted there. And also it makes you eligible to elect the Farm Service Agency committee members. These committees are at the local level in terms of individual producers within the county there make up the committees, and they actually to help decide what projects are funded and not. So, you know, this is almost kind of like having your vote here if you have your FSA number there. This is kind of a more sophisticated high tone that Steadfast Farm put in. I know Eric said that he did get cost share on this, on putting this up. One of the things that I think is probably really important about this is that he has did the option there where he put motors here. He's got electricity for having the sides go up and down. And I've been in that high tone once, and I think it was about in March, and the sides came up when we went in, and we hadn't been in there for even 5 minutes, and the sides went down for a bit, and then in another 5 minutes later they went up. You know, because I mean, there's so much sun comes through that glass when the sun is out, that even in the winter, being able to regulate that temperature is important. And he even has vents, you know, on the end there as well. But he's got the double glazing as well. That's pretty common. Even like the high tones in Flagstaff and higher elevations, they'll do the double glazing where they blow air in between. It doesn't take much of a fan to start pushing in there, and then you have that dead airspace. So it provides a little bit more insulation with regards to the weather out there. Yeah, and it's amazing what you can grow in these in terms of starts. This is what he has greens in another area, but much higher controlled humidity. But these are tomatoes he's had in there, different vine crops. You can be, you know, kind of the first to market, but also think about it, I guess, in terms of as our climate is getting, you know, hotter and hotter in the summer. It's almost like we're having to think about, well, maybe we can grow more outside of the season where it's just so hot in the summer that it's really hard to grow it. And a lot of the high tones as well, like Joe Marlowe towards Benson, he puts a shade cloth over them in the summer, you know, so they protect them from the direct sunlight, and provides essentially a microclimate that he can use to grow more when it's really super hot out. Talk about records. This is the market up in Prescott there. This is actually the winter market. You see they have their jackets on and whatnot, but I mean, they have two checkouts there, essentially using Square, and you know, they could run everybody through quicker if they just took cash, but they're doing this so that they can record, you know, how much they're actually selling here. Because I think they have like 131 different categories that they have in their Square system to allocate all the different sales that are coming through on their products there. So, you know, being able to keep track of what's doing well is pretty important there. Flowers are something that they've really gotten into in the last, you know, 5 to 10 years. But, you know, they're also looking at all the different root crops and different things that they have out there. So, I mean, this is a lot of work, because in order to get this presentation done by 8, they're often getting up by like 2 or 3 in the morning, you know, so they have to keep that in mind. But they obviously love what they do, and they need to be able to manage it, so that's why they're keeping track of the Square there, right up there. Because, you know, basically, if you can't measure it, you know, it's really hard to manage it, as the saying goes. And, you know, all these different crops, if you're selling 100 different items and you have so much, you know, say you get $10,000 at the end of the sale, if you don't know what is contributing to that $10,000, how do you know what to go back to in terms of producing on the farm? And also, this also gives you an idea too, the records in terms of what you can produce and when, because you know, quality is often the biggest selling point I think that we might have for our product here, right? I mean, we have to be saying, and we have to be producing a product that's better than the consumer can get at the grocery store, right? It's got to be somewhat unique. And we need to be able to keep track of when the quality's not up there to where if it's not above grocery store quality, we probably can't afford to grow it because we can't compete with what's in the grocery store for most items, you know? So, I mean, we can argue that, well, maybe it's fresher and will last a little bit longer, but for the most part, you have to think about what is something unique that's going to give that consumer something that they can't buy at the grocery store just easily buy. So just to summarize here, we're about out of time here as well. Records are important, you know, for your taxes and as well for getting the Farm Service Agency number, because they're used in, you know, almost all the USDA programs. Records are very important if you have like something like organic certification or you're certifying for regenerative agriculture. You've got to have a lot of detailed records then. Pesticide use reporting is also something that is very important as well in terms of keeping track of, for your own protection, you know, that say, oh, I did not apply anything here, or if I did apply it, how it was applied and where, and what plot would be very important to know. Related to that, food safety and traceability. I mean, it's for your own good in terms of just having that liability protection to knowing what practices you did there, that you didn't apply fresh animal manure, or, you know, the animal manure didn't come from you. Also needed for crop rotations, and then those management decisions on what to grow, when, and how to grow it. So, you know, there's a lot to do in terms of time commitment to keeping records, but it becomes a fundamental part, I think, of how people manage. And, you know, what was going to work for you is something you have to work on yourself, but we provide these notebooks here, and the pocket notebook is just something you can use to get started out there. Okay? So with that, that's all the slides I have. Do you have any questions? Or we're ready at 7 o'clock? So.
Yep.
Could you go over the equip?
Oh, the equip?
Yes.
Sure. Let me go back to, I think I guess I didn't really have a slide per se, did I? No, okay, yeah, so once you have like a Farm Service Agency number, you need that to apply for any of these programs, including like the EQIP program. So EQIP is administered by NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service. And we could try to get them in here as well too, if we could come during the day. Phil would probably more than gladly come, but like Tyler hired here on his EQIP here, it's a cost share program. But there are in the last I think year and a half now, they made it so that it's possible for limited resource socially disadvantaged to get the money up front for what they have, what they're going to provide. So you don't have to come up, so like say that the high tunnel would cost $10,000 and they're gonna provide 85%. It used to be you'd have to put the whole 10,000 and get the high tunnel up and then get reimbursed, you know, so you'd have to almost get financing elsewhere. But for limited resource and socially disadvantaged now, they will actually put that 85% up front there, so you could actually go ahead and put the high tunnel in.
Okay. So.
But you have a certain amount of time to get it up and everything, and then it also has to be a high tunnel that's approved by them, which is typically you know, a kit or something that not a home built, but something that has an engineering design behind it is what they're looking for.
If you're interested in that, I work with Kayla. She's with NRCS.
Oh, okay.
And I can hook you up with her Okay. She was looking for the farmers out there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, they have quite a few on their staff, actually, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, and especially now with Maricopa County and Phoenix being designated an ag urban area, I think there's more people available, people resources available now than they've had in the past, yeah.
Does it just cover high tunnels or like?
Well, there's a whole bunch of other practices as well, too. But,
Soil, trees.
But high tunnels have kind of been the most common one, and they have a program now that's kind of like fast track, because it used to be all the projects had to get approved by the committee board. But as I understand now, for like the high tunnels, they can essentially approve them internally in their office and not have to, wait until the committee meets and everything to go through. And then there was like a priority pecking order as well, in terms of, because typically there wasn't enough money to go around, so they're basically prioritizing all the different projects for the year in terms of which have the most environmental benefit, and then moving on down. So, because there's only so much money to go around what they had, and there's been more money here in part due to the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. There's a lot of funds that were applied to EQIP as well. Okay.
La certificación orgánica.
For the organic certification.
Okay. Se requiere de mucho tiempo, hay que llevar una capacitación por días, o es en un solo día, y si se puede ser bilingüe o en diferentes partes.
How long is the process to get the certification? Is it something that will take, is it like a one-time thing, or is it a full-on visit? Is it an extended
Okay.
period of time?
Yeah, so for the organic certification, it's like an annual process. Every year, you'd have to get recertified.
But how long is the process to get certified?
I mean, I think
Si alguien no la pone,
if all of your records and everything are together and your operation is, following all the certified organic practices can be established, I mean, I think they can probably set you up or approve you in a day or two,
Dependiendo de cómo tiene sus récords de lo que ha crecido, cómo ha pasado costos de agricultura, puede ser en un día.
But they typically do like water testing as well, so it may take a while to get some of those tests back, soil tests.
Pruebas del agua, de la tierra.
¿necesita tener un espacio limitado o es cualquier cantidad de lugar?
Is there a certain percentage or quantity of the land that has to be grown organic? I think you said
No, I mean, there's actually a lot of organic farms that have conventional as well as organic production.
Puede ser de los dos, puede tener convencional y luego orgánico también.
But there's established buffers though between the organic and the conventional in order to pass for the organic. So depending on the crop, the buffer can be larger as well, because they want to make sure that there's not, even cross pollination in some cases.
So tiene que chequear básicamente que estén separados los
Okay.
productos.
Para poder vender, entonces se necesita obligatoriamente tener esa
La
certificación.
certificación de orgánicos.
Okay.
To be able to sell organic
Yeah.
you have to have the certification.
Se
Yeah,
necesita-
to use the label of USDA label certified organic, you have to be certified, yeah. If you sell just a little amount, you can still use say it's certified organic, but you can't use the USDA logo. But for the most part, most people that are not certified organic are saying they're growing beyond certified organic, and it's true in some cases they probably are, in terms of their regenerative practices that they're trying to work into. Because part of organic certification as well is kind of building up the soil health and whatnot. And there's a whole, we could do a whole hour on organic certification. And we've got some resources on that as well too, if you want. There's a book put together.
Is it, Dano is only one size or is it different sizes?
Well, Yeah, there's all kinds of different sizes, yeah. There's small sizes, you know, they're the smallest, there's some that are like about 12 feet. Well, to be approved as a high tunnel, it has to be something you can walk through. It can't be just the small canopy that you would put over in the, like a cover crop, yeah. So it has to be something that you can walk in. And, you know, 12 feet wide, and typically they're almost always longer than they are wide, right? You know, that's pretty common.
So maybe I missed that, you know, so to me that EQUIP program was the main thing, you know, they're looking for, the NRCS is looking for. When we apply it, so what's the main thing?
Yeah.
What is that?
What's the main thing they're looking for to apply for these?
Yeah, EQUIP program.
I think they just want to make sure that you're a farmer and that you're going to actually use it to grow stuff in there. You know, so they want to know that you've got a farm number and that you have an intention to grow, to sell there, you know.
They do auditing?
They do, I mean, they will, yeah, know probably pretty much, you know, what you're going on, whatnot, how the high tunnel's being used, yeah.
If I could add something, is everybody here from Spaces?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
There's limitations on what you can do with a high tunnel. They're not allowed. Anything over 6 feet is not allowed. It is considered a low tunnel, and EQUIP does work with low tunnels. And Kayla will be able to talk to you about that. We've already been through this. It
Okay.
was a small nightmare to go through, but so there are a lot of answers on what we can do at Spaces now and what we can't do.
Where could you find that? The, like, rural type, like.
Talk to Kayla.
Caitlin?
Yeah.
Yeah, part of the issue is zoning, yeah,
Mhm.
in urban areas in terms of what's allowed there as well. Yeah, so that becomes an issue in terms of urban agriculture, what's allowed for high tunnels, yeah. And that's,
But
yeah.
they work on other things too. I have my moringa trees that got certified as, well, not certified, but for what I did, I was paid to plant those moringa trees, or they covered the cost. Also on composting and mulching, your irrigation systems, it covers a lot
Yeah,
of what you need for
Yeah.
farming.
yeah.
It's a really good program.
Yeah, especially like say on the irrigation side, yeah, they'll help you with the design and cover a lot of the cost, yeah.
And one of the things that you do want to keep in mind when you do use like the irrigation is they're looking for water conservation.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, how to
Yeah.
save water, that's where drip irrigation is
Yeah.
a natural, because, you know, it's,
and they'll pay like 80%, and that is huge. It includes, you can get like a tank, the pump, the,
the filters are expensive, yeah.
yes, I mean, and it helps keep your fields cleaner from all the stuff that comes down through those waterways.
And make sure you get your water too. Sure, you. Yeah.
So you are having FSA fund member?
I have a lot of numbers. My books is what I have for certifications. I have them written down. I have to go back and look at the dates once in a while to see what's expiring and what I have that's active.
Yeah, but you'd have
But
to have an
it's
FSA
important.
number in order to get any payments from NRCS.
Then I do, yes.
One question. ¿Cualquier día se puede hacer la certificación o a dónde hay que dirigirse?
Para hacer la certificación orgánica.
Ajá.
Can you go any day, or is there a specific location where you have to go to apply to get the organic certification?
Well, you'd have to arrange for a certifier to come in.
Oh.
Like I said, we don't have any in Arizona,
Es
so.
que sería como tiene que todavía agarrar una persona de California para que venga para acá a poder hacer el
O en Phoenix no hay,
No hay
en
ninguno,
Arizona.
no hay ninguno.
Yeah.
Tienen que traerlo. So eso se paga, por eso hay varios que a veces se juntan a pagarlo juntos.
Entonces si estoy vendiendo no me pueden casar.
Lo puede poner, pero desde el logo de USDA no puede usarlo hasta que sea certificado.
Yeah, like I said, I think there's, according to the ag census, there's only like, I think it's 62 farms in Arizona are certified organic, you know, which is not.
O se puede viajar a California y hacerlo allá.
Tiene que venir el señor para acá
Tiene
ver
que-
su, aprobar su agua, la tierra.
Después de la certificación, como vienen personas de otro estado, ellos vienen en ese tiempo a chequear y a revisar, a supervisar.
Para hacer los
Ajá,
cargos de la
para hacer
tierra.
no, pero después de la certificación.
Es cada año.
Cada año.
So after you get certified, it's every year. After that, they have to come,
Yeah.
and it's out of pocket to get them to certify again.
Yeah,
So otra vez es otro costo cada vez que
Yeah.
vayan a.
so that's why most small farmers are
Yeah.
not.
Entonces mucho más.
Es mucho, por eso nomás hay 60 en todo el estado de Arizona.
But that's why they have that cost share program too, to help some, but still, it's a lot of expense for a small farm, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. Because, yeah, travel's not cheap, yeah.
Los gastos de la certificación corren a cargo del agricultor, de
Sí.
la persona.
Sería de usted porque usted está pagando por la
Yeah.
certificación.
And spaces there, my guess is the difficult thing would be is having the right buffer zone around you, you know, because you don't really have control over who's right around your plot, right? I mean, so you'd have to have the organic producers all kind of in one area.
At spaces specifically?
Well, I mean, just wherever
Yeah.
you're at, you
Yeah.
need like a buffer zone between conventional agriculture and organic agriculture, depending on the crop.
So for clarification, for the EQIP or NRCS assistance, is it, you just have to have the farm number, it doesn't have to be ag land,
No, it
like
doesn't,
zoning?
right,
Okay.
you just need the farm number, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have to be classed as ag land by the county, yeah.
okay.
That's something that would be the hardest and most difficult to come by, yeah. In my view, yeah.
Thank you.
Usted dijo sobre agricultura convencional y orgánica. ¿Hay una gran diferencia entre esos dos?
Conventional, the conventional farming and the organic farming, what would be the difference? If you should wanna know.
Just in general terms is, organic is not allowed to use any synthetic pesticides or chemicals. Okay.
Sí.
But there's also conservation practices that are followed with organic that are not with, because like, there's certain chemicals that are products that are approved for like pesticide, but first, you're supposed to use, you know, like crop rotations and different practices to control those pests before moving to anything that would be an approved organic product.
So es más como usar menos químicos.
Sí. Pero los dos son permitidos.
Los dos son permitidos. They're both allowed, it's just a different way of producing it.
Yeah,
Es igual, pero es diferente manera de producir el producto.
but yeah, we can go over this in another time. We've got classes scheduled for another couple of years of like 5 classes each, so you might think about conveyed so on what you want to cover the most, you know, because we could spend a whole class on certified organic, you know.
This is awesome, yeah, this is really cool. It's good to know, like you don't, I mean, especially like local farming, it's not.
Yeah. But yeah, it's good to know that these programs are out here and that you can take advantage of them, just even though you have just a few a couple hundred square feet, yeah. That's
Yeah, you mentioned it, but I missed it, so that Tyler, so he has a reason why, he has so many, yellow spots. his
Well,
his technique or his,
he was just basically going to the different land plots around him there, trying to see who would rent to him, in part because he had a plan together to try to get lower taxes, for them. Because once he consolidates all those to become like a large enough unit to be classed as agriculture, then the property taxes get lowered on all of those plots that he has. So the people that he's renting from would even have lower taxes.
oh, okay. Yeah. Deal with the tax.
See, yeah, so that's, okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Las carpetas otra.
It's great to see everybody. My name is Rachel Stewart. I've gone through the Farm Service Agency process 3 times. I'm really happy to present this and talk with you guys. And it's going to be a lot in a short amount of time. So, so there's that. Let's see. Okay. So, some websites that you should get familiar with are farmers.gov. And if you're looking to get the farm loan, that's fsa.usda.gov. So as you can see on, oh no, hold on. I don't know how to go back. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. So so on here, farmers.gov, it helps you get started, grow your operation through a variety of programs and services, from farm loans to crop insurance and conservation programs to disaster assistance. But FSA.USDA.gov is the Farm Service Agency, also known as FSA, is an agency of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, that serves all farmers and ranchers and agricultural partners through the delivery of effective, my screen is cutting out, but you can see, ag programs for all Americans. So the difference between loans versus grants. Are you guys there?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, the screen went black, so I couldn't tell. So loans are things you have to pay back. Grants are things that are different. So loans, you have an interest rate and there's a payback term. So how many years is the payback term? And usually you can pay it back early. So that's not, it technically should not be a problem, but you should always check with whatever the loan is to make sure that if there's no prepayment penalties, if you want to pay off your loan early. Now with grants, there's usually regulations, there's an application process, and it's not a loan. It's not something you have to pay back. So it's very different. I get a lot of people telling me they want grants, but in my experience, one person told me to apply to a USDA grant. It usually takes about 100 hours of work. So it's not like easy necessarily to apply for grants. I think grants are great, but they're not as reliable as a loan per se. Okay. And I definitely want you to know that like a loan is because you have a business, which is what Russ was just talking about, why you have your farm number, why you keep records, because you have a business. And so that's why you are getting a loan, or why you would want a loan to grow your business. And then a home loan versus a farm loan. So some people have had home loans in the past, and maybe you're familiar with that. Usually they're 30 years. So a farm loan is actually 40 years. It's different. And they're like, when you get a home loan, they're valuing the house. They're not valuing the land that the house is on. Sometimes you're actually buying a house and not that land. If you're buying in an HOA, you are buying the house and not the land that that house is on. Where when you're buying with a farm loan, you're buying the land, and they don't care about the buildings. If there's a house there, great, but they're not valuing the house. So it's more about the land value. So urban versus rural is really, really important because it changes. So rural, you might find $1,000 an acre, but urban, you might find $100,000 an acre plus. So it's very different. And that's why sometimes if you just go 30, 45 minutes, an hour outside of town, you might get those lower prices. So that's why urban versus rural matters. But I also heard that they are supporting urban farms, so you can get an urban farm. Let's say it's 1/8 of an acre, or I don't know, however big the plot is that the house is on. You can still buy that in the urban spot. So they are approving those as well, where you can live on your farm, and I definitely recommend that. So if you can, because then you're not paying two places. Then you're not paying where you live and where you're farming. You can pay in one. And then so the price per acre matters. It really, really matters because that's what the Farm Service Agency is going to value what you're doing. So in the real estate market, they look at, okay, what did this house sell for in the neighborhood? Well, then our house can go up in price or down in price for that. And it's the same in the price per acre for farmland. So if they see, a larger farm over here is selling for 2,000 an acre when you're buying 100 acres, then you can also get that price or less or more. It's all negotiable usually, but it's not valuing the house, which is what I want you to know. That's like the really important part. And it's not the same as a regular home loan. It's not a home loan. It's a farm loan, which is about the land and where you're going to farm. Now, also working with a realtor can be really difficult because a lot of realtors are used to you having a pre-approval, and that's not how the Farm Service works. The Farm Service is the opposite. So in the normal real estate market with the home loans, you get the pre-approval and then you go out to and say, like, I want this house. But in the farm market, you have to get that farm or that land under contract, and then you go to the Farm Service Agency and get your loan. It's like literally the exact opposite. So you're saying, I'm gonna get this under contract, and then you are going to them and say, this is the land I want you to buy for me. And then the Farm Service Agency will work with you to purchase that land. So state versus federal, I want you guys to understand that the Farm Service loans are they're through the state agency, and also you can go anywhere in the country. This is not just Arizona specific. Their guidelines are across the country. So if you're like, I really want to farm in Georgia, I really want to farm in any other state, it's fine. You can. It's not just here. But also it can be anywhere. It's not state specific. These are federal programs, but it goes through the state to work through to get you your loan. So it is a federal program, but it goes through the state to work with you. Now, Farm Service Agency loans are the best loans you're going to find ever, because it's for farmers and because farmers are so special and they support our country. And like, even I work with a lot of veterans, and this is better than a VA loan. So I work with people who have VA loans or they buy things through that, which is great too. But with a VA loan, you have monthly payments. If you don't make your payment in 3 months, they're going to take your house normally. Where with a farm loan, and you buy the land, and this is the ownership loan with the farm, they're going to wait 3 years before they would take your farm, because you have annual payments, which are once a year. And the reason it's once a year is so that you can grow your crop, sell your crop, and then make your farm loan payment. they want to support your farming. So it really, really matters. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is owner financing. So owner financing is another alternative. So sometimes people think they don't have good credit. I'm not going to get a mortgage. Like no one's going to approve me. But then these owner financing programs are better. You know, they think, oh, well, I just need to give so much down and make these monthly payments. But it matters with owner financing, and you can still use owner financing with the Farm Service Agency. You can still get like buy a farm through owner financing. Usually the interest rates are higher. So the interest rates with, and we'll talk about that later. But usually they're better than anywhere else. And with owner financing, usually they're a little bit higher. And then also you run the risk of everything that you're paying can be lost in like a matter of a month or two of not paying the bill. So the benefits of a farm service agency loan are the term limits. So you have 40 years. That means your payment is longer, but it's not like to make you pay more money. It means you have more time. And of course, you can always prepay, and that's fine. The payment terms are the annual payments. So that's better than any loan I've ever seen. You get to pay once a year, and that's on the ownership and the operating loans. And the purpose of the loan is to help you grow your farm, start your farm, expand your farm. So it's like you want a loan because you're trying to use it to make money. My most successful farmers that I've had are business people, because they sometimes business people, especially minorities, do not have access to funding. So then actually getting access to money, they're ready to move forward and want to grow their farming operation, their food operation, and know how to keep the records and the things that Russ was talking about. So the reason they have their regulations, I like to tell people, in case they haven't seen Coming to America, where Eddie Murphy's on it, and they're talking about like the pork belly prices and the orange juice and this and that, and what's happening in the market. And the reason is because the government is giving you this money so that you can farm, and you're telling them what your projection is. So I'm going to produce this much sheep, this much wheat, this much anything. So whatever crop you're telling them, then we're telling the government, then they should possibly expect this in the future market. So that's why they regulate you. They want to know what is possible in the effect for the future of our country for food. So you can sell it private, you can sell it however you want. Your crops could fail. You know what I mean? It happens. But that's why they regulate you, and that's why it matters. And so sometimes people get scared of getting a loan or thinking they're going to be regulated and it's going to be like they're going to be like coming out all the time. That's not really how it works. And then historical versus now. In the past, a lot of Black farmers have lost land. A lot of minority farmers, a lot of farmers overall have lost land. And that's why I want farmers to know how these programs work, and how they can keep a farm, grow a farm, and be successful for the future. Farm discrimination is a real thing. The Farm Service Agency is working to have a more positive outlook and relationships with people. They're working really, really hard on that. And like Russ said, to work with the NRCS or to get any of these farming programs, you need to register your farm number, and that does go through the Farm Service Agency. But sometimes there's been discrimination to just get a farm number. Sometimes it's about the loans, but they're not going to tell you how to apply. They're not going to tell you what to put on your application. They're not going to tell you any of that. You are the farmer, you are the owner, and you are the one who's going to tell them what you need and what you want. So it's very different. So we'll talk about that in a second. But it's I have my nonprofit for a reason, and that's why I support small and minority farmers and ranchers. So please feel free to contact me. If you're going to apply, if you need assistance, I do work with the USDA agencies as well. So I successfully this year helped over 500 acres go actually to Black female farmers, and then also for them to secure funding for those farms as well. So nonprofit versus for profit. So a nonprofit means what it says. It's not to make money, which nonprofits do make money sometimes, but that's to maybe sustain their operations, but they're not regulated by the IRS the same. The things they report are different than a for profit. So for profit means you are trying to make money. So the Farm Service Agency only lends to for profit. They only lend to you if you're saying you are trying to make money with your farming operation. So that really matters. And then especially if you're saying, well, I'm going to do a teaching farm. They don't care about that. That's not where you're telling the government, I'm going to grow this amount of crops for this amount of time, and I'm going to make this amount of money. A teaching farm, including, which is the next point, agritourism, you can do all of that still. But that is not, I mean, from my understanding, should not be in your farm plan. Your farm plan to the government is about how much money you're going to make actually from farming only. Now, agritourism is great. A lot of people do it. It's very successful across the country. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't count on it, but I'm saying when you're applying for a farm loan, that's not what you should base your farm loan off of. You can still build with that and still build to hold people, or if you're doing a teaching or anything like that, but it's still not crops and what you want to base how you're making your money off of when you're trying to apply for these loans. Now, the importance of a farm plan is everything. Your farm plan is everything. That is it's your business plan for your farm. And it's not 50 pages or 10 pages about what your goals are and what you explaining how you're going to do it. I mean, I've seen it work, but really it's more than numbers. They care about the numbers. So it can be Excel spreadsheet. It's not about how you're wording it, how your cover sheets are and this and that. It's more of what are which there's a few rows down, your inputs and your outputs. How much does it cost you to grow it, and how much are you going to make by selling it? That's what matters. And what does it take to put in and what does it take to put out? So sometimes your inputs are packaging, maybe it's seeds, fertilizer, the livestock costs, pens, like whatever you need to grow your operation. Those are inputs. And then outputs is like what you're making. And then you can look for university farm plans, because whatever you want to do, and that's where, to me, with all the farmers I work with, it can be a little crazy because no one's here to tell you what to do. It's like your world. You can do whatever you want with it. So if you want to do cucumbers, if you want to do anything, tomatoes, like you can look up what university farm plans are out there, and they're usually in Excel, and you can usually download them, and they'll explain what inputs and outputs you need. They'll have those detailed for you. So then that way you can have samples, and then like dedicate them or change them to the sizes like Russ was talking about, where it's not like it can be smaller, it can be versus one plot versus another plot. So you want your farm plan to be catered to what your goals are and where you're going to be farming. And then building your own farm plan matters. So I've seen people, a lot of people try to pay others to build their farm plan, but that's not the way to do it. You have to build your own farm plan. And it's stressful, it's a lot of work, but when you build your own farm plan, then you know what it takes. You know, okay, this is not viable, but if I increase this, then that makes it viable. You know, okay, I'm spending too much on fertilizer. Oh, I'm spending too much on this. How can I cut back? You have to understand your own farm plan. And when you're talking to the farm service agency, that really does matter because they're going to do research on the plan you submit to see if it's also viable. So then if they say it's not viable, then you have to go back and fix it. And so that's why, like, if somebody else built it for you, you have no idea what they're going to say when they come back to you. You know, like you understanding how your farm's going to work matters. And then also, like, it sounds corny, but like when you stick to the plan, it really is successful. And then of course, you know, there's unforeseen things, but they really do work with you. And the next is the importance of ownership. So some people, you know, don't understand the importance of ownership, but others are ready for ownership. So to be an owner, yes, you're a boss. You are the owner of that land. You are running it. You are paying your taxes. You get exemptions. It's up to you. You are running that whole business. And that's where when you go to the farm service agency, you are telling them, I am the owner. I want to buy this farm. This is how I'm going to run this farm. And I want you to give me the money to not only buy this farm, but the money to run this farm. And they have to understand that you are the owner. You cannot go in there saying, tell me what to do. That's not how that works. They're going to look at you and say, I don't know. What do you want to do? And you could say, well, tell me what to farm. They're going to say, you're supposed to tell me what you're farming. You know, so nobody can tell you. That's why I said it's your world, how you want to grow, how you want to deal with it. It really does matter. And then so leasing versus ownership, a lot of you guys are at spaces, which is basically a lease. So ownership is like you're owning the land versus you're paying that monthly payment towards leasing the land. You can lease the land. So if you find other land outside of where, like, you found maybe 20 acres and you want to lease 20 acres, 100 acres, however much, you can do that. And then they will still give you loans to operate on land that you have leased. So the lease just needs to be the term length of your loan. So if your lease length is that amount, then you should be fine. But the ownership is, again, you're owning it, you're buying it. It's different. So for your business, when you're applying to the farm service, you can have an LLC. You can apply under your social by yourself. You can also apply in a trust. You know, there's different ways you can apply to the farm service agency, but you need to have either an entity or yourself will be applying. But regardless, yourself is still going to be attached to that. So if you do an LLC, yourself will still be attached to it. You'll still run your social and you will still be attached to it. And that's for the direct farm ownership loan. Now, the farm history and why it matters. I want everybody to be informed because I don't want history to repeat itself. You know, a lot of Black farmers lost their land in the 80s. And this is why I want informed buyers. I want people to know, look, this is a loan. You have to pay it back. You have to dedicate your time. This is not like a scam. This is not like a joke. This is not anything like that. You take your farm seriously, you make your money, and you make your payments. They also take any income you're making to support your farm plan. So your income helps as well. But That's why I want everybody to know about the 3 years, that they give you even 3 years of non-payment before they take your farm, because I don't want anyone's farm to be taken. That's sad, it's scary, and I would want to avoid that at all costs. So the beginning versus experienced farmer. So the beginning farmer can get $50,000 to buy a farm and $50,000 to operate a farm, and that's not based on your credit score. An experienced farmer can get, the beginning farm, the term limits is also 25 years. So to put that in perspective, let me give you an example. I know we only have a few minutes and I'm going to go fast. So for 25,000, I'm going high on the interest rate. For 25 years at 5.9, your annual payment every year is less than $2,000. So they'll give you a loan for $50,000 to buy a farm or land, and I did 25,000. I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense. I thought it was low. It's under 4,000, under $4,000 a year for that, to own that farm. Now to operate the farm, it's not 25 years, it's 7 years. And that's saying they give you the 7 years. Sometimes if you're buying like livestock, they'll only give you 1 year for the operating. So it depends on what you're buying. But let's say they give you the 7-year maximum for the $50,000 operating. And the difference between operating and ownership. The ownership is asphyxiated to the land. That's your land, water, electricity, fencing, house. Operating can be tractors, seed, livestock, maybe irrigation. So things that are not attached to the land, things that you're going to use to make money. So on the operating loan, because that one's only 7 years, that annual payment is under 9,000. So it's like 8,700. If you got the full 50, because it's paid back in 7 years. So the operating loan versus the ownership, I think we just covered that. So operating is used to make money. The ownership is used to own anything attached to the land. There's another part, which is a direct loan versus a guaranteed loan. So a direct loan is from the Farm Service Agency, and sometimes I've heard it from other places, they want you to be denied from 3 other lenders before you can work with the Farm Service, because it's like the Farm Service is looked at as the lender of last resort. But that's why credit doesn't necessarily matter with them. It's not about your credit score. It's about your farm plan, which makes these loans different than everywhere else. I'm not saying you can just rip people off and then come to the Farm Service, but they'll look at your credit score and say, what is this? What is that? And if you can explain it, they'll still give you the loan. Guaranteed is through a bank. So when you see guaranteed loans, they'll be like $2 million. And those ones are through a bank. It's a third-party lender, and it's still through the USDA, and they're still going to say to the bank that they're going to guarantee it like a farm loan. But if you don't make those payments, they're a lot more cutthroat than the government in as far as like taking your farm. Now, direct versus guaranteed, I have not seen any guaranteed loans work successfully for minorities. Direct farm loans are what I have seen work, and that's why I try to support others in applying for them. So I like to support them in applying for what works, which is why I don't promote necessarily grants, because I haven't seen those. They're not guaranteed. It's not like that. But the direct farm ownership loan, the direct farm operating loan do work. Also, I didn't go over the limits for the ownership loan for the direct. So for the experienced farmer, I went over the beginning. The beginning is 50,000 for the micro loan for operating, 50,000 for ownership. The experienced farmer, you have 3 years of experience of farm management or farm ownership, where you're keeping the records, the thing like things like Russ talked about. You have 600,000 to buy a farm, and then 400,000 to operate a farm. You don't have to request that amount, but the term limits are the same of the 7 years for the operating. Now the ownership goes for 40 years. That's what makes the payment different. And so let me give you a sample or an example of that. So for let's say you got a $600,000 loan for 40 years, your annual payment is under 40,000 a year, which is not bad for an ownership loan. So and then like I said, I've helped over 500 acres almost get purchased this year to minority females of color through private and then also through the government funding. These programs do work. It can be hard, but it's really important to not give up. So any questions? And then here's my contact information.
Thanks, Rachel. Oh, hold on. Can some
Are you there, someone?
Yeah, give me a second. Okay, can you hear me? Can you hold on, give me one more second. All right, what about now? Oh my God. Can you talk about the difference between specifically between an individual applying versus an LLC versus a trust? I think a lot of folks don't understand the concept of utilizing a trust for getting loans.
So it's an individual versus an entity. So a trust is an entity, just like an LLC is an entity. So you can have a trust just like an LLC, and those can also apply for farm loans. You can get EIN numbers for them as well, and have bank accounts for them. So you can apply for them, but also if you have multiple people on it, if it's an LLC, then any and all individuals related to that have to apply, which means they all will have their credit ran and they'll all be included on your application. I hope that helped.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Go for it.
Hi, Rachel. My name is Blanca. Thank you for your information. I had a question. ¿Uno tiene que buscar el lugar o ustedes le proporcionan el lugar para el terreno? ¿Cómo dice?
Do you have to look for, let's say, a piece of land on your own, or is there designated spots that are reserved for those types of loans? Great question. Yeah.
You definitely have to find it on your own. So that is why some people get a real estate agent. You should start searching. That's why I talked about the price per acre, so you can learn like one area versus another area, what's a better value for what you're going to buy, because you're taking out the loan, so you're responsible for it. I had one farmer, I helped him, and he was looking at 20 acres, and I was like, look at the price per acre over here, and it was like so much more. And even in Tucson, like my ranch up there, they were saying, I got it for less than 2,000 an acre. And then I had another farmer who said, I want 8 or 10 acres for 600,000, which is almost $60,000 an acre is what he was looking at. And it was a 45-minute difference. So it's up to you to decide where you want to buy and that, but there's not anywhere specific that's going to say this is what's available. There's like Zillow, there's like Land and Farm, other like land websites, but you definitely have to find it on your own.
Ahora, otra pregunta, Roch. ¿Un terreno puede estar en medio de la zona urbana y puede utilizarse como granja?
Is a piece of land allowed to be in an urban area and used as a farm?
Yes. You can buy urban or rural. So you can buy urban and it can have a house on it.
Oh, nice.
So it can be that, and then you can justify how you're doing your market garden on that acreage, on whether it's an 1/8 of an acre, a 24th of an acre. And if your house is there and the comparable values matter on that price per acre, you can do it for sure. And I've seen it in Phoenix actually.
No importa, ay, otra vez. No importa entonces el tamaño, que sea nada más unos 2 acres o 3 acres, también puede ser compatible.
Does this quantity of acreage matter?
So what matters is the price per acre.
Price.
So if you're saying I'm buying a 24th of an acre for 200,000 and that's comparable to your area, then they'll approve it. You know, if you're saying I'm buying 100 acres for 2,000 an acre and that's what's comparable for the area, they'll approve it as well. So I recommend trying to find places that have the resources that you want. So like electricity, water, if it does have irrigation, whatever you're looking for, I shoot for the moon and then see what you can find.
Yes.
Sí, mucho más fácil.
Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the USDA has an application on their website that shows you a map of basically property that's available, that's applicable for the USDA loan, right?
I am not familiar with that.
Okay. Russ?
Yeah.
I'm not. Say it again.
So the USDA has basically like on their website, you can go and look at a map of what properties can be applied for a loan. Does that make sense?
I don't think it's properties, so I think it's different types of loan arrangements.
What do you clarify?
So as to whether it's, sometimes you can buy the property directly from the owner to where you're paying them. There's a different interest rate there. Or if you're just buying it directly through FSA.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure they don't have anything with properties for sale. Yeah.
Okay.
And pretty much any property can be changed into a farm loan.
Okay.
So, but they have repossessed maybe properties or things like that they're sharing. So maybe that's what you're thinking about.
Okay.
Rachel, my name's Elaine. Recently, I found a piece of property up in the Prescott area, the Prescott Valley, but it was sent to me by a realtor. And you're suggesting that we don't go through a realtor? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, not at all. What I'm saying is that some realtors are not familiar with the Farm Service Agency process.
Okay.
So if your realtor is willing to say, because anytime you're gonna get it under contract, I would say to the buyer or to the seller, are you willing to work with a Farm Service Agency loan? So if your realtor is also willing to work with the Farm Service Agency loan, that's what matters.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Entonces lo que estoy entendiendo es que
What did you
si
say
encontramos
last one?
una propiedad, hay que buscar con el servicio.
Dice que hasta propiedades que son casos regulares a veces las
Daily
prueban.
Lane.
Es dependiendo de.
What's the matter?
Y eso no conviene con la
What you said it.
I thought I understood that it was best not to work through a realtor. But what Rachel was saying is that you need to find out if the seller is interested in working with the FSA.
And also your realtor. So
And-
some realtors are not willing to work with the Farm Service Agency loans
Why?
because they're unfamiliar. So normal realtors and traditional buying, you have a pre-approval and they're gonna ask you for a pre-approval, but that's not how it works here. So you have to get it under contract and then you submit your application. So it's opposite from the traditional process, which is why some realtors don't want to or are unfamiliar with it and don't do it.
So if we have a new realtor, then this would be a really good educational experience for him.
Yes.
Definitely.
And then he would be able to help other people.
My realtor who I've worked with in Cochise County has helped me and probably about like, I don't know, I feel like 6 other farmers as well, because there's not a lot of realtors who do it.
Oh, okay.
I have a question.
Hi,
So
Diamond.
hello, Rachel. When it comes down to the payments to restart, if your outputs for the farm, for one, I guess, do they ask to see your records for your farm output? And if your outputs aren't what they're expected to be and you don't get the income from it, do they care about where the funds come from, or as long as it's getting paid back, they don't really care once you get the loan?
So if you have the farm loan, then it's more about making your payment, I want to say.
Okay.
And you still can report like your outputs of I did this much squash or this or that, you know. And they might send you like a flyer to fill out or something. But in your application, they might ask you for records. And it's okay if your records are not high.
Okay.
It's okay. Like when I got my first one, our records were like maybe $1,000 in our sheep and goat sales and stuff like that. And we were still able to get it. So it doesn't have to be, it just has to show that you have been in business and that you're keeping records. It's not necessarily about like, oh, if you had a bad year, if you had this, if you had that, but it's to show that you can do it, basically.
Now,
and that you
how,
have
I'm sorry,
No,
how
it's okay.
recent does it have to be? Because, okay, so like in my case where I haven't done it since, 2019, you know, like right before.
Your farm experience is all that matters. They also count if you grew up on a farm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
So, and then you could say, oh, no, it was 2019 and you have that and you can show what you had from then. You know, like I've been growing here, whether, so they're showing your experience is probably one of the, like the easier things to prove to them.
Okay.
And the experience is what matters between getting the micro loan, which is the 50,000 to up to the 600,000. So having the 3 years of experience means you qualify for the 600,000. So I just wanted to tell everybody that.
Oh, okay.
But anybody can qualify for the 50,000 to buy and 50,000 to operate. So that's available to everyone.
Okay. And then when it's time, I guess, to like if you're looking for bigger acreage, do you let the people know, I guess, like I would assume you let them know where in the process should you be communicating with the FSA in the land searching process?
After you have your land under contract,
Okay.
and you have your farm plan ready to submit.
Okay.
and you're ready to submit your application, that's when you should talk to them. Before then, I recommend calling me.
Okay.
What's the best time to call you?
Anytime. I make time for farmers.
Aw,
Yes, thank you.
You visited the other day, Spaces of Opportunity.
What was that?
Did you come to Spaces recently?
I have a few times this year. So I did in January, and then recently I met with someone, but I have not been there in like a month or so. Maybe
But the other day I saw with the white truck. with USDA plate, I'm like,
So that was a different group.
different group?
Yeah.
oh, this is wonderful.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Does anyone have any other questions before we kind of bring this to an end?
I appreciate y'all.
All
Yeah.
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Russ.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
thank you guys. Appreciate you. I'm glad to be here.
So we'll close this out. Thank you everyone for being here. I'll get this all edited down and hopefully we'll get a better version. I'll send it out to everybody, including all the farmers and spaces. I don't think there's anyone that this applies to, but if there's any community gardeners who are interested in this information as well, this is pretty much for anybody. You just gotta ask, because we probably won't post this online or anything, but if anyone asks, they can have this information. Cool. All right.
Excellent. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
I think, yeah.
Have a lovely evening.